We are here to talk about the movie Reign of Fire, 2002 post-apocalyptic dragon-based science fiction disaster film.
Post-apocalyptic, but pre-reconnaissance?
Pre-reconnaissance. As you alluded to, it stars Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale, as well as Gerard Butler. Way before the reconnaissance, way before Butler and Bale became household megawatt celebrities. It was directed by Rob Bowman, which you've probably not heard of much he's done. He's actually a prolific TV director, and you have definitely heard his stuff. He's worked on a lot of X-Files. He did like 13 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. He's still working today on like the drama Castle. This and Elektra back to back seemed like it killed his career. I'm not sure it's his
big
fault.
Screen career.
This movie is credited with 5 different screenplay writers. I think that's the problem that this movie suffers from. Jim, what did you think? What did you think of this film?
So I have this vision in my head, and I think it's one that's pretty shared across the board. That Reign of Fire is a joke of a movie. That it's bad in basically all respects. I went over to Rotten Tomatoes. I looked at the score. It's like 41% fresh, which is to say not fresh at all.
No, unfresh.
I have a question, though, after watching this movie for you.
Okay.
Is this actually a bad movie?
It's not a bad movie. I think it's actually very close to becoming a cult classic. I think like we watched this kind of on back to back with Army of Darkness, and this is definitely a more serious Army of Darkness, but it's a better Army of Darkness too. But also, are we sure this movie doesn't know that it's ridiculous? I mean, they really lean in at with some of these performances and situations.
Yeah, I mean, the shocking thing to me is, as I was watching it, I never really got the hint of this is completely terrible. I kept seeing all of these really good actors putting in, performances that don't ask a whole lot of them, but also performances that are respectable,
right,
and solid. I kept seeing CG that for 2002 seems like it held up really well.
I think this movie holds up because a lot of it's like the dragons are CG for sure, but a lot of it is like on location work, practical effects.
I kept seeing story beats that were like, borderline Armageddon level post-apocalypse kind of stuff, but serviceable. I kept seeing jokes that mostly landed with like Star Wars scenes, and I kept thinking to myself, this is actually not terrible.
Yeah, no, and it's a hoot. Like some of the so with these film fests, what I've realized is some of them are more entertaining as live watches, some of them are more or perhaps as entertaining as podcasts. I definitely think this lives and breathes by its live watch. If you're a club member, I think you should check it out because it's just a really fun movie to watch. Like one of my very first riff tracks I ever saw was this movie, and it's a really good time.
Yeah.
Before we go much further, I just want to, like, in case you have not seen this movie, and it's a good chance you haven't, the premise is in the early 2000s, they were delving deeply in some sort of underground tunneling project in London. I'm not sure why, if this was like Channel related or what, but they dug too greedily and too deep, and like the dwarves before them, awoken a ancient chamber full of dragons that burst forth and conquer the world. No nuclear bomb can stop them. They quickly grow geometrically. They hunt humans to near extinction. And we flash forward 20 years in the future where the little boy of the mother who is overseeing the construction project that originally freed the dragon has grown up and has commandeered some castle in the moors, and he has a small group of humanity that's trying to wait out the dragons and rebuild civilization. Then some American dragon hunters led by the irrepressible Matthew McConaughey enter their life, and their cautious strategy of waiting the dragons out and eking out a meager existence is turned upside down, and several CGI-based set pieces are executed until the end of the movie. And there you go. And again, the crimes of this movie are its world building is lazy and surface level, and that's really it. And I think that's probably because they couldn't. How in the world do you have 5 scriptwriters?
Yeah, 2 credited for story, whatever the fuck that means.
Right.
And then 3 credited for screenplay.
Two credited for bong hits to be like, what if instead of nukes it was like dragons in the world?
Right.
And then 3 to kind of like polish that into some kind of shape that you can shoot. But like if you had a really good screenwriter, the concept is a little bit silly, but it's solid. And I was really in love with some of the stuff they did, like their little like cloaked gardens and their like all of their like combat is based on keeping things cool and wet and not burning, and they use these like big elaborate tanker tanks. And
I would argue they need to be maybe shoveling a little more ash out of the immediate vicinity.
Sure.
But I actually went through as I was watching this the second time, and I said, okay, what systems do they have in place to actually survive this onslaught of dragons?
Right.
And it turns out they actually have quite a few systems in place.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for some really dumb characters at the beginning, well, a dumb character, then a lot of this could have been avoided. Although I guess in the end they don't really need to avoid it because they might have won.
And that's where I'm saying like that's the big problem, is the tension in this movie all comes from essentially either stupid plot building, like, oh, there's only one male dragon in a whole fucking world, and if you can kill that guy, the dragons are fucked. Like, this is like the biological equivalent of a Death Star reactor that can be hit with a photon torpedo.
Oh, dude, I went to TV tropes to look up this movie.
Yeah.
It has the longest list of tropes that I've ever seen.
Which is impressive for a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the other plot drama is generated by humans being stupid. Like, man, if they just came up with a smart way to execute like the first dragon raid, where you just didn't hate all of the characters involved and the fact that these people were allowed to live, like the movie would be at least a whole star better for me if Matthew McConaughey had reluctantly but inevitably executed these people. Instead of like, oh, I don't know, they could have been right, maybe we should, I don't know.
I think they got a little too cute with their ideas for fighting dragons as well. Like these skydivers with nets come across as completely ridiculous to me. So yeah, maybe they get a little too cute there, but I don't know. I mean, they tried, like they went and they hired the best actors they could find. Christian Bale is awesome in this movie. I said,
none of these, you got to keep in mind, none of these actors were where they are right now.
Right.
Like, it seems like a big catch, but in 2002 land, or when was this, 2002, 2006? 2002 land, Matthew McConaughey is a washed up, stoner actor, and these other two guys are weird dudes with thick accents that... has Gerard Butler been in anything?
I mean, Christian Bale McConaughey, he was doing like romantic comedies and sports movies with Al Pacino, and like he was getting
this
there.
era, really?
I can't remember exactly when those movies all came out.
Bale did American Psycho, I think, the year or two before this, so it's not like he was unheard of. But he hadn't been Batman yet. He hadn't been John Connor.
So I think they both did a really good thing in casting those actors, but I also think they made a huge mistake in Matthew McConaughey's character. Tell me why Matthew McConaughey is leading a gang of soldiers who are all dressed in military gear, and then he's got this fucking sleeveless bomber jacket with a neckerchief and a huge cigar 6 inches into his mouth.
I don't know.
What the fuck is that? This movie would be 10% better if you simply put him in a real jacket.
Yeah, like a real military outfit.
Right, like all of these other people
guys.
are.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think this is costume design for people that can look at military outfits and distress and distort them, but don't understand any of the purpose of what they do. Like, guys wear handkerchiefs like that to catch hot shells that are ejected from like burning your neck. It's nonsense if your jacket is like zipped down to your navel and doesn't have sleeves.
Right.
But like, otherwise I guess it makes him look like a kind of some kind of special forces fighter that's
I mean, it makes him look like something out of Mad Max.
Right. And that's the thing, is like he keeps very high standards for the rest of his men. None of them look like ragtag dragon fighters. They still look like members of a proud military unit, and he's just way out of regulation with his dress and grooming and cigar chomping. So So people might be wondering. I mean, I don't think anyone wonders why we threw this into Super Serious Film Fest fantasy.
Yeah,
It's got dragons, but a surprising bonus. It also was one of the very first acting credits for one Jack Gleason.
Yeah.
There's a teeny tiny baby Joffrey Baratheon in this film. About 6 years before he reunited with Bale and Batman Begins? 4 years before that?
Oh, right. Yeah, it's amazing how recognizable he is, even at what must be like 6 years old, 5 years old.
Maybe even like 4 or 5.
He's so young.
It's those eyes, man.
Yeah, and the pointy chin. Like he's got all of the Gleason features right there.
Yeah, he just got bigger. Like he came fully formed with King Joffrey face. So that's good or bad.
I hope he gets work after Joffrey.
I don't think the last I heard is that he doesn't really want to be an actor. He's like,
that's fine.
And he's got a ton of money and but I don't know. Maybe that's also like it seemed like it was also hard on him to be a teenager and to be that like viscerally hated by people.
Yeah.
So like maybe he just like, fuck this. I'm going to go get a university degree and maybe think about it later on. But so yeah, there's a solid Game of Thrones connection right there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this movie is notable for me for how close to greatness it could have been. I'm trying to think of, there's all kinds of things that they could have done to figure out how to kill the dragons that wasn't like just a massive biological weakness that they have.
With the magic hour, which can we talk about how
they didn't even do like there's where the 6 screenwriters come in, because some dude came up with the magic hour, but they doesn't really come into play at the climax of the movie, I don't think.
It doesn't really seem like it. There's one scene where Christian Bale is fighting the dragon at the grand climax, and he's kind of able to roll behind a pillar or something and get out of the fire. And I want to attribute that to the poor vision that the dragons have during the magic hour, but I honestly can't.
But we see a dragon vision, and like, if anything, like it's a little distorted, but like the humans are outlined in like this flaming gold. So
right.
I'm pretty sure you could spray
it's
fire
like
at
the
them.
Terminator's targeting computers, right?
Yeah.
Like, or RoboCop or something.
Yeah, and I'm not like there's a couple other things that like the fact there's just a couple lazy things. The dragons eat ash. That's so stupid. I mean, and also it's not even.
I like it because this is like a supremely evolved life form, right? Like a life form that can essentially make its own food is pretty impressive to me as far as evolution goes.
Okay.
Because it's got the tools to create ash, which it then eats, and then it hibernates when there's no more ash to eat.
I guess I just feel like scientifically, ash is the lowest potential energy thing that you can have. Like ash is a result of what you do when you burn all the energy out of something and just leave a pile of carbon shit behind. Like
it's like if the dragons ate water and their superpower was to dehydrate everything.
Right. Right. I can't come up with something right now that would have been better, but and I think the other way is where they kind of like leave everything vague and like, well, the great nations tried their biggest weapons and it just scorched the ground and it gave them more. That's fine. It's just honestly, it's the creakiest parts of the script are in the first act where they're establishing the crisis. Well, not establish the crisis. They're showing the survival, and they have these people, go rogue, which kicks off the first set piece, and then the end of but you're right. The dragon combat seemed kind of dumb because they act like that these dragons could be anywhere and they have to sneak around, they have to live underground most of the time. But then these dudes show up in like an M1 Abrams and some sort of attack helicopter. This attack helicopter flies up, and like I just don't see how dragons don't take helicopters. One of the most flimsy things in the air. Also one of the slowest things in the air. I don't understand how this would be the way to take down a dragon. That you have a guy jumping out and he's the bait, and then 2 other guys jump with net guns, and you take the nets down, and then you harpoon a dragon when you get him onto the ground.
Right. It all seems a bit dubious.
Because if that's true, then how in the world can like a Sidewinder not take these fuckers out?
Yeah.
If a net and a harpoon can, then then yeah, I don't know.
I think it can. It's got to be something about mobility. Like they are very agile in the air as opposed to the helicopter.
But they can't dodge a net, two nets that are going very subsonic speed.
Yeah. No, a lot of questions about that. None of which have answers in the film. They just thought, hey, wouldn't this be cool?
And they do the other, like the thing that drives me crazy about Battlestar, where it's like the average angel lasts 14 seconds in his lifespan. Like, how the hell do you have any of these guys left, let alone one guy who's been doing it for 8 years? Like, he's throwing the average way the fuck off. How in the world, like, do some guys like die in a millisecond to offset this guy's 8-year career? That's not how averages work.
There's a lot of stuff like that where like they set up these completely inconceivably short amount of time. So like the end of the movie, they talk about, oh, it's been 3 months since a dragon attack, since we've seen one. They must be gone forever, basically, or they must be hibernating again. 3 months is not that long of a time. So you're implying here that they get attacked very often, like way more often than 3 months, because now they're feeling safe after 3 months. So it must be like a weekly occurrence. How are any of them still alive?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think that they're really good at hiding at castle and rigging it up to sustain like a full-blown dragon assault. Like, they, for better or worse, the castle did survive a full-on male dragon, biggest, baddest dragon assault fairly easily.
It seemed to me like that was the first one that they really had to defend against.
I think you're right.
Because this water system was brand new.
Right.
They at the beginning of the movie, they say, oh, now we can spray 500 gallons a minute or whatever.
Yeah. But they also have, like, it seems like that there's always more mouths to feed because people are having lots of babies, and like any refugee they try to take in. And like I said,
they've got these lookout systems as well.
Like a bird, like somehow this bird is the first one that's able to detect the dragon, and then they have like a Morse code system, and they have Dr. Julian Bashir monitoring like some kind of sonar radar system or just communications period.
Yeah, but that system entirely failed them at the end of this movie. I don't understand exactly how it failed them.
Yeah, me either.
But it did, because you see a hilarious sight, which is a dragon sort of slinking up on this castle and then looking right in the window and breathing fire onto Bashir. And it's like, where was the lookout?
Yeah. Well, you just wasn't expecting a dragon to belly crawl.
I guess not.
Commando crawl up to him. It's a smart dragon.
So this is like a post-apocalyptic disaster movie type of thing. I'm going to name some movies. You tell me if this movie is better or worse than those movies.
Okay.
Let's start with a pretty easy one. Is it called Dante's Inferno, or is it just called
Dante's Peak?
Dante's Peak, yeah.
Right.
Pierce Brosnan volcano movie.
That's the one where he paddles across an acidic lake.
Yeah, his grandmother jumps in and pushes him to safety or something. Yeah.
Right. I think it's better.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I will not watch Dante's Peak again unless it was for like a live watch riff track situation. Whereas, you know, I could see myself wanting to watch Reign of Fire in 5-6 years.
How about Tommy Lee Jones' Volcano?
Better. Both of the volcano movies of the 90s, 2000s are terrible.
Morgan Freeman's Deep Impact?
I think that's better.
Okay.
It takes itself more seriously and and it's more plausible as a disaster film.
All
and
right,
it has equally good performances and characters.
Here's a softball. Independence Day.
I mean, okay. Independence Day is Reign of Fire with a little bit more time polishing the script.
Yes, and a little more fun.
It's a little. Yeah, see, yeah, you're right. It's a lot more fun actually because this movie's aesthetic is very dour, but it allows it to have, like, for example, there's nothing in Independence Day as cool or honestly as moving as Christian Bale and Gerard Butler reenacting Star Wars to entertain these children, like in a like morality play kind of way.
The Black Knight stares through the holes in his shiny mask, and he speaks words that burn into our hero's heart forever. I am your father.
because I had forgotten that scene existed, and I actually found myself kind of like really caught up in it, like. Especially because they really sell with the kids' reactions, like the fact that these kids who have been raised and they've never seen the internet, they've never seen television, they've never seen movies. This is like fucking amazing, and it just shows how fungible the human experience is. Like I don't think our imaginations are being enhanced nor destroyed by these big blockbuster movie kind of things, but it is kind of amazing that two guys in a hokey costume reciting some lines can essentially get you 99% of the effect of James Earl Jones voicing a 6.5 foot tall bodybuilder in a badass space wizard costume on a $1 million set.
Sure.
You know, like that's, I thought that was really cool. And Independence Day doesn't really have anything, you know, like even when they're killed, like, you know, they're killing off first ladies and endangering dogs. Like they're these cheap theatrics that there's nothing that really kind of gets to the human condition like that, because it just doesn't take itself as seriously.
You mean the party on the rooftop doesn't speak to the human condion?
Well, it does.
A bit.
It does.
A bit.
But not in any way that's uplifting or
to teenagers
informative.
Trying to get laid in the desert on the last day.
That does definitely speak to the human condition.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the children, I liked some of the world building around them because they had this mantra that they were taught, like, what do we do when we wake?
Keep both eyes on this side.
What do we do when we sleep?
Keep one eye on the sky.
What do we do when we see him?
Dig hard, dig deep.
Run for shelter and never look back.
They're teaching this new generation how to live, and sort of ingraining it in them, so it will be that much easier for them when they grow up, because they'll already just have an intuitive understanding of what to do.
Yeah, which already makes it automatically more interesting than like 9 seasons of The Walking Dead.
Right.
Because like this really did show a society that's not debating about how things. This is just how the world is, and this is how we got to survive.
Yeah.
And everyone has to be on this page. I saw something interesting that made me smile when I think about like Christian Bale and how seriously he takes himself. It's so funny because like Christian Bale is kind of like the pop success version of Daniel Day-Lewis. So apparently Christian Bale, he read the script and, you know, the world building went on, and like the fact there's food shortages, and he's like, well, these people would be like scrawny and wiry and scrappy. So he lost a ton of weight. He went from, and this is kind of story of his life, he went from American Psycho, where Bateman, among other things, was fucking in perfect human condition, really built and jacked. Then he lost a bunch of weight coming in this movie, but when Matthew McConaughey came in for like some dress rehearsals and I guess some read-throughs and some preliminary pre-shooting work, he came in like Matthew McConaughey in this movie. He's just really bulky and heavy and muscular. And Christian Bale also knew in the script that he has to fight this man. And through, like, I guess, I don't know how much of it is commitment to art and how much of it is, like, no fucking way.
Vanity.
Stoner surfer boy going to outflex me. But he, like, I guess in 8 weeks, put on all of that lean muscle mass just so he could punch Matthew McConaughey in the face.
Taught Gerard Butler everything he knows.
Yeah, right. So that's Christian Bale's such an interesting guy because I think he is legitimately a great actor.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it his whole life. But he does a lot of like schlocky stuff. Or, I mean, I don't know, like Christopher Nolan's Batman's not schlocky, but superhero films, for whatever reason, culturally are not taken with the seriousness. So, because they're not, I mean, Batman's inherently ridiculous.
Right.
So you have to approach it with that to actually have it for it to kind of like take on its, you know, gothic grandeur. You have to like excuse a bunch of stupid shit to have it work on its mythological level. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of weird because it's hard thinking of other. I'm thinking like Harrison Ford is another guy who's done a lot of pop stuff, and is another guy who, I mean, I guess he's done a couple things like Witness and
Fugitive.
The Fugitive, but The Fugitive is not high art.
No.
It's definitely a crowd pleaser. And I feel like Christian Bale kind of tries to straddle that art. You know, he does The Machinist. He does What else has he done? American Psycho. He does. Although is American Psycho what you call a serious art film?
Yeah.
It's pretty pop in
think
its
so.
sensibility, though.
It is, certainly. I mean, Huey Lewis is pop as fuck.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's using that to comment on society.
Right.
And so I would call it more, it has something to say about culture.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know that a lot of, Batman movies have something to say about culture.
It's so I guess they had like maybe hopes or plans for this to be a sequel. I saw in an interview that Christian Bale was talking to the young man that he is kind of like mentoring throughout this film, and he's saying that like, hey, if they do the sequel, like you'd be a good star for that because like it'd be a nice little handoff. But this movie is seen as a commercial failure. It cost, I think, $60 million to make and only made $80 million worldwide.
Okay.
And I was one of the ones I saw this fucking movie on opening night.
Wow.
I was super excited. I thought the trailers to this movie looked fucking amazing, as you can imagine they would. And I remember being kind of like disappointed, but not fully, because there was a lot of awesome scenes. And if anything, I was just amazed at how well the thing held together.
Yeah. No, I think it's a pretty good movie. There are a lot of like little things that as I dug into them more, I kind of understood better. They don't do a lot of direct world building aside from that little montage that we get between I think it's like 2002 or 2006 or something,
right,
and 2020. But in that montage, it's interesting to me that like the apocalypse, the dragon apocalypse, must be either a very slow motion apocalypse, or
because they said it took years for the world to fall.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they said the early years, like when it was very chaotic and people just running for their lives.
No, I was shocked to see the Time put out a magazine related to the fall of the world here, with like Buckingham Palace completely destroyed, in rubble, and Time. It must have hit like, 2 days before their deadlines, and they scrambled and were like, "Oh shit, scrap that article about Bush. We're actually going to run this thing about the dragons fucking everything." It came out 2 days later, and the world was done.
Yeah, I've always thought that's funny. It's like, what is the last newspaper before the apocalypse?
Well, that's my point. Like, they shouldn't have done a periodical. They should have done a newspaper, right?
Yeah, like this is like the
if
end
it
is
hits
here.
at the beginning of the cycle, they're never going to get that
Right.
published.
Yeah, who did the glossy long form piece on the dragon apocalypse?
The really hard hitting investigative journalism.
Although I'll grant you this, I bet it took a while for the dragons to get across the ocean.
Yeah.
Like going to the
what's max
Americas,
speed?
or like I bet that, and especially since like there's no dust or ash for them to eat over the Atlantic. They'd have to go up through like Greenland and Iceland, and like go north to go west, I guess. So maybe it did, maybe it would, and then you've got like I wonder if like you're supposed to understand that the nukes and stuff like slowed them down, or at least killed a bunch of them, and but they're always able to respawn and rebuild with the one fucking man. The one fucking male dragon who was busy.
Oh, yeah. Real busy.
Busy as a one-dicked dragon and impregnate every female dragon in the world contest.
They made it seem like he was just crop dust in the females with sperm. Like salmon.
Like fish. Yeah. Like you just lay a bunch of eggs and you just...
Yeah.
That's gross. Can you imagine being like in downtown London scavenging on the day where he... schlacks the world with dragon sperm?
Hey, don't kink shame.
True. There's a lot of people spend a lot of money at Bad Dragon that would trade their lives for that experience.
I meant to talk about this magic hour.
Oh yes.
So we talked about what it does to the dragon's vision, but think about this in terms of Hollywood. Writing a script where the Achilles heel of the big bad is the magic hour, which to me is so
funny,
self-aggrandizing of Hollywood to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what can we use to save the world? I know, this insider Hollywood term that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
Silly.
Yeah, like, and it's also the most expensive time to shoot, but it's when the light's the most beautiful, and it did feel like a very screenwriter thing to come up with, and it's actually a kind of cool idea that like at the dawn and like when the light's flat and there's some kind of advantage, but they poorly visualized it and didn't ever felt like it was an actual issue at the end. And there's also a couple other dumb things, like they land right outside the Dragon Dome and they're like, oh, I can't believe we weren't spotted. And they literally walk 50 feet from their helicopter, stick their head over a berm, and a million dragons take to the sky.
And the male then immediately spots them.
Yeah, like what the fuck, man? Like this loud ass helicopter. Have you ever been snuck up on by a helicopter?
Twice, actually. Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Like
no, it doesn't.
Maybe the magic hour clogs their ears too.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when you turn down the music when you're trying to find a house address because you can't do two things at once. Maybe it's the same thing with dragons, only in reverse. They have to turn their ears down so they can see in magic hour.
Amplify their sight.
Yeah, I don't know. I do want to talk about some other fun cameos. There was Isabella Scorupco, who is the first of the good Bond girls in the Pierce Brosnan run. She was in Goldeneye.
Yep.
She was in here as the pilot of the helicopter. That was pretty cool. Alice Krige, I think is how you pronounce her name. It might be Krige. She is the Christian Bale's mom in the beginning of the movie, and you might recognize her as the Borg Queen.
Oh, I actually didn't recognize her because she's heavily made up as the Borg Queen.
Yeah,
and she's covered in dragon mining dust.
Dragon mining dust. Yeah, they're delving deep for them dragons.
Huh.
So yeah, there's quite a few kind of nerd.
I guess while we're
reference, and Alexander Siddig, as we already mentioned.
Yeah, Dr. Bashir from Deep Space Nine, of course. While we're on the topic of Quinn's mom, let's explore that a little bit more, because I feel like that's one of the places where they sort of tried and failed with this movie.
Yeah.
They make this connection, which seems highly coincidental, of Quinn being the first person to see the dragons, and also somehow the best equipped to deal with them and ultimately kill the male.
Yeah.
And save everyone.
Yeah.
And it feels just a little too coincidental for me.
Yeah.
And they also don't do enough with the pathos that this kid might have, given that his mother was slayed at the hand of the first dragon.
Well, okay, so here's where I think the 5 screenwriters come in, because his motivations are kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, his mother's scolding him for being like not taking schooling seriously, and now he's lost a scholarship that's going to cost a family $3,000 every quarter or whatever.
None of that matters.
But I think you're supposed to understand that, like, this, you not living up to your potential and then seeing your mom die in front of you, like this, now he's like ultra responsible and he's ultra everything for the common good, and they're supposed to be formative, but it doesn't really track.
No,
it doesn't really track.
They don't do enough with it.
There's no reason that the boy that made first contact with the dragons has to be the last bastion of humanity in the British Isles. Like, it's
no, honestly, I think they should have killed the boy at the beginning of the movie.
There didn't even need to be a boy. There could just be workers, and it's just a 5-minute like introduction of the world, and then we just see 20 years later, here's a group of humanity that's surviving.
Yeah, it's too cute. It's not as impactful, like, to let this boy live and then ultimately be the hero that slays the dragons.
Well,
like,
but they didn't do anything else. Like, there's like hints that he's got a problem with authority. There's hints of him like having trouble following instruction and like fitting in. But like, and maybe they could have turned that into like why he had to fight with Matthew McConaughey or why he butted heads. But again, none of it really tracks.
No. And the other shocking thing to me during this movie is the other angle in which I think they failed mostly is the romantic relationships. Tell me, can you name a single romantic relationship from this movie?
Romantic. I didn't.
So there
actually
is.
Oh,
there
wait,
is.
no, yeah, okay. So there's the one kid who his dad. There's one kid that his dad got him to get out of bed, and his girlfriend was right.
Okay, so that's an implied romantic relationship. I think there's a couple in bed.
Gerard Butler is making time with a blonde in the depths of the castle at one point.
Oh, is he?
Is there like you're not implying that Quinn and what's the angel driver, the helicopter driver?
Alexandra, is that her name?
No, Alex. I think don't they call her Alex?
Okay, Alex.
I don't know. Fuck it.
I think so.
The Bond girl. Do you think that they were supposed to be in love? Because I didn't get
they
that.
are. So at the end of the movie, they walk off into the sunset holding hands.
Well, here's to evolution.
But it struck me while I was watching this movie up until that point, there's not a single damn actual romantic relationship. There's no flirting. There's no lovemaking scene. There's no kissing. There's no anything romantic until that final scene.
I think they should have left the final scene out because
I agree.
I actually thought that Christian Bale's character through this movie would not be the type that would have any room for some sort of love affair. Because he's too busy being the glue that holds the fabric together.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that was kind of an afterthought by them saying, well, we've got this man and we've got this woman. And let's just put them together at the end. Because that's happy, right?
You know what? And the thing is like, in the last decade, I think Hollywood has tried hard to not do that. Like, you know, like I remember when the first, funny enough, Pacific Rim stood out to me as like, there's two young, attractive leads. And by the laws of Hollywood, they should start showing attraction to each other, but they never did. The man and woman in that film that like are joined together and fighting. It's just a completely platonic relationship, or maybe even a brother-sister relationship, given their relationship with Stryker. But I kind of like that more and more, that they're just not forcing that together.
And you can kind of say that about the new Star Wars too, with Rey.
Yeah,
and Finn, like
I think that's great to teach little boys and girls that you don't have to couple up.
Right.
Like that's an option if both people are for it and it makes sense. But you don't, like, if you get into a situation where you're throwing together another attractive person, you don't have to bone.
You don't have to.
You can keep it professional.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
And this movie very much felt like at the end it had to.
And there again, there's the 5 screenwriters, because somebody was kind of like, well, if the guy doesn't get the girl, then how do you even know he won?
Right.
You know.
But you had this perfect opportunity with this kid, right? This 3-year-old that he found and raised and kept safe. He kind of flips the keys to the kingdom over to that kid when he goes off to fight the male dragon, but then it seems like he comes back and takes the keys again and says, hey, this is actually my car. Right. You just borrowed it. They had an opportunity there to make that relationship, the father-son thing, echo the mother-son thing that they had in the beginning. If they had done a little more building that.
Yeah, you're right.
They just don't go for it, and they take the lazy way out at the end.
Yeah. There's a couple other things I saw that, like, they had the bad luck to be filming this on location where, I think this is in Ireland,
where the dragons actually did come out of the cave.
Worse, hoof and mouth disease had erupted in this country for like the first time in 60 years.
Oh, shit.
It was like costing millions and millions of dollars. And it was like, and they were filming in this rural area where it was like a hotbed, and like they couldn't travel, and there's a lot of restrictions on how they filmed, and it's a big hassle. So like, I think that was a hardship that the film faced. And then just this almost everything wrong. Like, the script is what it is, and I don't think the actors nor directors did the script dirty. Like, no. I think it's just the script itself wasn't engineered to hold the weight of what it had to. Like, it's a 5-ton bridge, and you just ran a 30-ton flatbed over it, and it started to buckle.
An Abrams, yeah.
Didn't quite collapse, but it definitely buckled under the weight.
And the actors are doing their damnedest. Like, there's that Christian Bale scene where Quinn is trying to keep the kids calm once we know the mantra, and he's trying to repeat it, right, and he can't get it out.
But all the other,
and then this other woman behind him has to pick it up for him as he kind of has a little breakdown, and I thought that was a powerful moment.
Yeah.
And they don't do enough with those moments or those actors.
Yeah, no, I thought that and there's a lot of things where, man, if they were given better material, like I was thinking, like, I would have rather have sat in like a big council debate about whether they should harvest things right now. And seen those guys like do a Council of Elrond style, like, you know, and then unified, like maybe Bale doesn't think it's right, but the whole settlement, you know, it's like they're hungry and their kids are dying, and, you know, he thinks it's a bad idea, but what is one, like, all the interesting things were cut out in favor of the stupid daylight save. Because, like, that's the thing. What are these guys in one Jeep going to do? Pick a bushel of tomatoes? Yay, we're saved. Like, what the fuck? It made it feel like fundamentally more selfish. Like, oh, all right, because these guys are just like shoving their gobs full of tomatoes as they're picking them. I don't know.
I feel like they lose the plot on the dire straits that they're in here. Like, once Fuckface McGee, I think his name's like Eddie or something, goes out to those fields, and the dragon burns up. I don't know how much of their crop, but more than they were going to pick.
Half.
More than they could pick. I guarantee
yeah.
that. They kind of drop the problem here. The main problem for this community is now they have no food.
Yeah.
And they can't replant for the next year. They are going to starve to death here. And they don't actually acknowledge that because, you know, a dragon rolls in, Matthew McConaughey rolls up, and they kind of get sidetracked. But then Matthew McConaughey goes away, and they never readdress that issue.
But it's all this. It felt like there's like 3 days elapsed for the time Matthew McConaughey, and they weren't going to run out of food like tomorrow. So like, I think I'm fine with that. I think they should, because like, when are they going to be like the second Matthew McConaughey rolls out, and also he took a bunch of their dudes with him too, right?
Get back to business.
So there's less
he
mouths
took
to
6
feed.
dudes with him.
Was it only 6?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He's
He
the
did.
6th strongest, so maybe they eat the most. But
yeah, they eat 6 times the food. So there's
That's
36 people walking out the door, 36 mouths you don't have to feed. I don't know if Matthew McConaughey is quite cut out to be this kind of action hero. He is. I thought he's a badass as Rust Cole in True Detective, kind of like a wiry guy that'll take you by surprise, and he's cunning and kind of ruthless. As a beefcake, there's something about his eyes. His eyes are way too teddy bear to be this kind of like head shaved, fine sheen of motor oil all over his body, tribal dragon tattoos. Like he's trying to be something. He other than the bomber jacket, he looks like he stumbled off the set of Vikings.
okay, yeah.
And I just there's something. He's just a little bit too stoner poet in the eyeballs, man, to pull that off.
Yeah.
It'd be like Elijah Woods trying to roll that hard. No, man,
I'm not buying it.
You can. I've seen you be scary in Sin City. I'm not saying you cannot intimidate people. You just can't intimidate people this way.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm with you. Christian Bale, I think, though, is well cast in this movie.
Oh yeah,
I think he's about perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he plays like he's smart. He plays like he's tough. He plays like he could,
He's conflicted.
But he's also got leadership qualities.
Yeah.
No, I thought he elevated the work. I thought Gerard Butler as his number 2 was really good too. It's too bad. It works better than you'd think a dragon-based apocalyptic film would work, but boy, it's so close. It's so close to being tightened down here and there and being like an Independence level day, or even maybe a little bit better. But they didn't. So that's the thing about these schlocky fantasy films, is a lot of times they just are tempted to not sweat the details.